Hello and welcome to the Chaotic News special. This is episode number 1, and what we're going to do here once a month is I'm going to get together with a guest, and we're going to be talking about any number of issues. And since Halloween's right around the corner, I wanted to talk to my good friend Michael Wilkerson, of course, the head A&R guy at Firerock Music. And Mike, you're always going on social media, and I see you always making all kinds of videos. So since Halloween's right around the corner, I thought it'd be fun for you and me to talk about. Let's each pick like our top 5 horror movies of all time. Since you're the guest, I'll let you get started. Why don't we start off with maybe your number 5?
Probably have to be Strangeland.
Okay, D. Snyder, right? Movie, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
never
And
been released on Blu-ray.
oh, interesting. Yeah. Now, I'm tell us what you. Okay, that's like number 5 on your list. So, tell us, what are your memories of seeing that film for the very first time, and why it's number 5 on your list, and why it even made it onto your list.
Well, I think at the time that it came out was in between Twisted Sister. I could be wrong,
Okay,
and D. Snyder was doing other projects
sure.
like Desperado, and he had another one. I can't remember what it's called at the moment.
Oh
And then
wow,
he had D. Snyder's SMFs, which was another project.
sure.
And, for D. Snyder to star in a movie, to, everything that it was wild to see D. Snyder do that because we'd always known him as the
Singer,
head
Twisted Sister. Yeah,
singer of Twisted Sister,
yeah.
So, if my memory serves me right, it was one of those kind of movies that was typical. It was like I haven't watched it in a while. I don't even think in my 10,000 movies do I have that in my collection, to be honest. I'd love to have it on VHS, but it was one of those movies that just struck me as okay, it's here, and some of
It's
the other
kind of a
movies on the list is like that too.
it's kind of a got a cult following, and I think a lot of people did go see it initially just because D. Snyder was in it. Oh, let's see what he's like in a movie. Now, when you've seen D acting in the movie, I mean, what did you think of him as an actor? Let's also talk a little bit about the fact not only was he the star in the movie, but he was all very very much with the writing and the whole making of the film.
Yeah, well, we can't really say much about the acting because he was doing one thing, and that's
Yeah.
what movies are. I
Yeah.
mean, uh, as an actor, I mean, he had some one lines and things like that. So it was kind of like watching Freddy Krueger, but on a different level.
Sure. Now, my
If that
number
makes
5
sense.
is an interesting one. I got a collection here. Abbott and Costello. They made a series of like horror movies, and what I love about this, I chose specifically Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein, which is a movie that came out in 1948. Now, what I love about the film in general is the fact that they took something that I love, like horror, my 2 favorite things, horror and comedy, and they combined it, and it made for a masterful film.
I don't know if you know, but that film is included in a Universal Monsters Frankenstein DVD and Blu-ray.
Oh, I wasn't aware of
It's
that. I will have to check that out. Thank you for telling me, my friend. And of course, Abbott and Costello, of course, were a famous comedy duo, and I believe they got their start before they ever made any movies on the radio. And so when you're talking about Abbott and Costello, you got to go back in time and realize these guys got their start on the radio. So initially, people just fell in love with their voices and them telling these funny jokes on the radio. And then let's be honest, when they start getting to the point where they make the transition from the radio into making movies, it's quite a different thing. And what I mean by that is, I mean, you look at Abbott and Costello, and they were not your typical Hollywood heartthrobs, and yet they were able to go from radio to making movies and branch out to be very successful at what they did.
cool, cool. Yeah, don't. I'm not watching a lot of Abbott and Costello stuff. I mean, I got some of it in my catalog of stuff like Laurel and Hardy
Sure,
and
sure.
the what were they called? The Three Brothers.
Oh, the Three Stooges, yeah.
Three Stooges. Yeah, I've got a bunch of that stuff because a lot of it's public domain now.
Sure, sure. Yeah,
So it's free for companies to make.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting when you look at something like Abbott and Costello too, because again, I mean, like you said, it's part of a Universal Monsters collection. All these films they made, and even like in Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein, they got the original Bela Lugosi that played Dracula. He's also in the film, and so I love the way they brought the original Universal monster movies together with Abbott and Costello, and you have a mixture of horror and comedy, which just two things I really love. Because think about that, you're watching a movie like this, and you're going to be parts of it you're going to be horrified, and then the next scene you're going to be cracking up laughing because they just said something funny.
Yeah, I seen a thing earlier today because I watch a lot
Yeah.
of YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody said that uh, two of the biggest icons in horror type movies was Peter Cushing
Mm-hmm.
and Christopher Lee,
Sure.
and both of them were in Star Wars movies.
Yeah, yeah. Who would have thought? Okay, okay, Mike. So let's move to your number four on your list.
Number four would probably be Shocker.
Oh yes, yes. Now, what I remember about that movie the most, being a hard rock fan, was the awesome soundtrack you had.
Oh, it was an amazing soundtrack, and I mean the movie really didn't have a lot of substance. It was
Yeah,
more a movie about a guy who beat the system, really.
sure, sure.
I
Yeah,
mean, uh, at that time, serial killers were really big.
yeah,
Lots
yeah.
of things were going on in the world when that came out, and it wasn't no big shocker, but
No, but again, I just I remember specifically kind of the big song off that soundtrack was Megadeth did a cool version of and they made a video for it of Alice Cooper's Welcome or Under My Wheels, I think it was
yeah,
Under My Wheels. Okay, now
great soundtrack.
my number four is this. I don't know if you can see it. Of course, who's not a Munsters fan now? Back in the '60s, they made this Munster Go Home, and again, very much like Abbott
Oh,
and Costello. Now, this is I was able to get this on Blu-ray a couple of years back. I think you can still get it. So they actually have two movies on here. They have Munster Go Home, and they had another one on here, which so you get two monster movies, but yeah, let me see. So this came out in 1960 to be exact, and it's colorized, which I love because typically the monsters were in black and white. So this makes it a little different too, and very much like Abbott and Costello, I picked this because once again it combines my two favorite things: horror and comedy. And who doesn't love Herman Munster's just kind of grown up, kind of adolescent, kind of childish behavior of jumping up and down. But it's one of my favorites to watch every year around this time at Halloween. When I was a kid, they used to play it sometimes on Halloween, but like I got on Blu-ray now, so I can throw it in the Blu-ray player anytime I want.
yeah. Two things about that. I didn't realize, but the monsters were only on for 2 seasons.
Yeah, yeah. I think 2 or 3 seasons max, but
Two
yeah.
seasons. And what do you think about the remake?
Well, to be honest, I guess again. Now here's the funny thing. I wasn't born actually until 1971, but like a lot of people, I got into stuff like the Monsters through retro TV and through watching reruns. But because very much kind of like very much similar story with me discovering Adam West as Batman from a 1960 series. That was my Batman. This was my version of a monster. So I didn't like it because for a number of reasons. It's kind of weird to say, but I don't. It was kind of weird that they colorized it. Now I did like the movie they made a couple of years, Rob Zombie's movie. I liked that a little better than when they tried to come out with a TV series in the '90s because I think they tried to make that too modern. Again, it was colorized, and I think they're trying to be too modern, and they should have stayed more. As far as I'm talking about the TV show in the '90s, they should have
Yeah.
stayed more true to the original characters than trying to be so different.
Well, you do know that Rob Zombie originally recorded that in black and white, the new monster
Yeah,
movie, and that's the reason why the color is so saturated in it is because he had to go back and color correct everything because It was originally a black and white film, and you can actually get it on Blu-ray in black and white.
Yeah, I do have that somewhere in my DVD collection here. I just got such a massive collection. Take me a while to find it, but I did like Rob Zombie's version of it because I could tell just by watching the movie that like us he was a fan of it, and so he tried to stay as true I felt as he could to the original series, and so I give him credit for that. He didn't steer too far away from what it originally was, but Rob Zombie too. He's also kind of made other horror films, but I think that was a cool thing. His doing a take on the monsters. So
Yeah.
I will say this too. Another honorable mention that didn't make my list, but I'll mention here because we're talking about the monsters and the colorization. Another one that I always kind of loved was Young Frankenstein. In fact, I
Oh,
hadn't
amazing.
I hadn't seen it in years, and then I had a pop culture show, and we done an episode on it a couple of years back. So I went and got the DVD. Actually, it's on Blu-ray, and I watched it. And again, like some of these other things, like Abbott and Costello, even the monsters we're talking about, I love the fact that they combine comedy with horror. And I think the film came out in 1974, Mike. And the thing is, um, the guy that Mel Brooks who directed it,
Yep.
um, great comedy writer, great actor, great director, and he wanted to make that his whole intent. It's going to be a black and white film. I don't care what I have to do. The studio was insisting it being that it be colorized, but he was so intent that he held on to the film at his own personal um, office, so nobody could get their hands and colorize it. And so that's another interesting thing about Young Frankenstein is that it comes out in 1974. People are very capable of making colored films, but he wanted to give it kind of that classic authenticity of what horror films were known for. So that's why that was black and white. That's another thing. When I seen it, I
It's,
realized what a great film this is. So people that are into horror and comedy, that's another one you should go check out. So, okay, Mike, what's your
it's,
number three?
well, wait just a second. So you said honorable mention. So
Sure, go
I'm going
ahead.
to
Go
put
ahead.
one in there. I'm going to put Psycho, the original, with the black and white.
Sure.
Uh, the best movie, if you ever want to watch about what happened with that, is Hitchcock.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted the movie because it's in black and white, and
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
wanted the movie because the star girl gets killed in the first 15 minutes. And what a thing he showed the movie studios.
Sure.
And then, that went on to be three sequels. There's Psycho 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, and 4.
Yeah.
There was Bates Motel, which was the first, not the original, not the Bates Motel that was with Freddie Highmore, but Bates Motel before that. Psycho was redone, and then Bates Motel. So in the end, Alfred Hitchcock and his legacy had the last laugh because
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
were like, nobody wants to watch that. And I mean, look at it today.
Yeah. And while we're on the subject of Psycho and Alfred Hitchcock, I gotta say, also going all the way back to the original film, let's think about what a huge impact that had on pop culture to the point that still to this day, you go to Universal Studios in Hollywood, they got the little Psycho motel, that you see on the
Oh
tour when you
yeah,
go. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I think they actually in Bates Motel didn't they use that house on Universal Studios property for the new Bates Motel?
I believe they did. And one final thing on Alfred Hitchcock before we move on is another great film that I love. And let's just think about this for a minute. The Birds, another great Alfred
Oh
Hitchcock film.
yeah,
And what I
very.
love about that, let's think about he uses pigeons. Who would initially think that pigeons could use to be so scary? Look at it.
Well, I wasn't born when it was made, but my dad was, and he
Yeah.
remembers going to a theater, and he said he was scared of every damn bird he ever saw after it.
Right.
He was
Yeah.
like, he's like, it's kind of like Jaws. When Jaws
Yeah.
came out, people were like, "Oh, I'm not getting in the ocean. I'm not getting in the water. I'm
Yeah.
not going to
Yeah.
be ate by a shark." But my number three would probably have to be Devil's Rejects.
Oh wow. Wow. That's a good another Rob Zombie one. So you obviously are a Rob Zombie fan. Now let me ask you, are you also a fan of the Rob Zombie music?
Yes, I was privileged. I got to see White Zombie three times on when they were on tour back in the day, and I saw Rob Zombie on the very first tour they did was as a solo tour. So huge Rob Zombie fan back then. You know, I think I'm not a real fan of the very first one, and I've
Uh-huh.
not seen the newest one, Three from Hell. But Devil's Rejects will go down in history as one of the greatest type movies like that of all time. You
Yeah,
know, and I know it's sacrilege to say this, but even his remake of Halloween was really good.
I was getting ready to say that, and that's a hard thing to do. And I think maybe because Rob Zombie's name was attached to it, that's part of the reason the film was so successful. But let's be honest, it was a great film, and it's amazing that Rob Zombie could again do his take on another great piece of cinematic work, puts out his version of Halloween, and it's almost as good as the original. If I don't know, I dare say better, but it's a pretty
But the second one now, I ain't got much.
love for
I don't have hope for it. You know, it it was not. You know, it was. I don't know. I don't even want to talk about it. It
it.
was just not. You know, you give Michael Myers a brain. You know, and
Yeah,
he only comes back at a certain time and stuff. It's
yeah,
like I don't know. But I'm not a big fan of the new Halloween movies.
yeah,
I mean, you know, a lot of people love them, and I'm not a real big fan of the three movies. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just kind of depends on what it is, but typically you're right. I mean, even like it's not even a horror related film, but you look at, I don't know if you've ever seen the original Jerry Lewis version of The Nutty Professor.
oh yeah,
It's
definitely.
nothing like the Eddie Murphy version. I mean, even aside from the fact that Eddie Murphy's not white, that's not even what I mean. I mean, it's completely different story. So it's like, okay, the Eddie Murphy version is funny, and maybe if I'd never seen the Jerry Lewis version, I wouldn't really have an issue with that. But it's like if you're going to remake a film, at least try to stay, um, as true to the original story. Yeah,
Well, Devil's Rejects, you know, it was a lot different than the first movie.
sure.
And it took us on a ride. You know, one of my favorite people of all time is Sid Haig, which I got to meet, and I thought that he was one of the nicest people I ever met, along with Bill Moseley.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, you know, it's just one of those shows. I mean, it'll always go down in history as one of Rob Zombie's best movies, if not
Sure.
his best movie.
Yeah,
And you were talking about honorable mention. I'm going to throw in
sure.
Salem's Lot.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to put Salem's Lot, and Salem's Lot. The remake came out today on Max, by the way, if anybody's interested. At the time of this, which is what is it, the third today? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it came out on Max today, but I wanted to tell you a story because when I was a kid, the original Salem's Lot was a TV made for TV movie,
Oh, okay.
and my parents had one of those TVs that you could push the buttons.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was like by static
yeah,
electricity.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen Salem's Lot or not, but there's a scene where this little boy comes to the window and starts scratching on it.
Okay.
Well, about that time, those channels started going up and down, up and down, up
Yeah,
and
yeah,
down.
yeah. Yeah.
It's just because of humidity, because it's
Sure,
West
sure.
Texas. But I'll never forget that as long as I live. That Salem's Lot movie to this day is bone chilling just to watch
Yeah,
it because I remember from when I was a kid watching it. You know.
sure, sure. Now let me ask you, Mike, as a horror movie fan, um, what does it take to make a great movie? I mean, like if you go see a horror movie and it's just nothing but like stabbing and just slashing and killing people just for the sake of blood. I mean, are you a fan of that, or do you like there to be at least be a good story to go along with it as well?
Well, I always say it has to have three B's:
Blood.
boobs, boobs,
Yeah.
boobs, and more
Okay.
boobs.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. That's how we grew up. I mean, we're both about the same age, and
Yeah.
you know, a Friday the 13th movie wasn't a Friday the 13th movie without him,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
a Nightmare on Elm Street, or
Yeah,
uh, I do believe that some of the '70s type horror that came out,
sure.
like that kind of horror, was pretty awesome to watch too.
Yeah, but one that
Um,
really terrified me, Mike, was the American. I remember as a little kid seeing American Werewolf in London and the scene where a guy's head just is rolling down the hill. I mean,
yeah,
I'm so terrified of that.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, so number three would be, as I said, Devil's Rejects. What's your number three?
my number three is this: the original King Kong from 1933. And here's the thing: people got to remember about this. Okay, it's one of the first horror films. I mean, of those great horror films that came out. I mean, one of the original ones. And a couple things about it, Mike. I mean, first of all, um, Dracula and the original Frankenstein came out in 1931, like just 2 years before King Kong comes out. And you go back to original Dracula, and the thing with that is pretty much Dracula was the only guy in that film. If you think about it, he very little dialogue. I mean, it was the very beginning when they first started learning how to make movies, and so come 2 years later when they made King Kong. I mean, it's not that advanced, but it's a little bit to the point that King Kong was even made, if you read up about it, with what's called stop motion action animation, and that's how they created the ape. And it's very they had these little like models and stuff of the island
Hmm.
that they used. I mean, people would be amazed at what went into making a film like that. And yet, you look at the original King Kong; it's in black and white, and the ape looks so prehistoric now. But I love it but it's in the beginning stages of movie making, and yet it's 2 years after the original Dracula comes out, like I said, which had very little dialogue. But King Kong, by the time they make King Kong 2 years later, they have many more actors are able to be in the movie, a lot more dialogue. So just on a timeline frame, it's interesting what they were able to do in that 2 year period, and how advanced movie making had become.
But you got to remember, one of the best silent films of all time is Nosferatu,
Sure.
and that movie, to this day is still bone chilling, just because he doesn't even speak in it because it's
Yeah.
silent, and it's such a shocking movie, which is being remade now.
Yeah.
By the way, it's coming
Yeah.
out, I think, in 2025. But like you said, King Kong, it was before its time. It really was. I mean, yeah, we got other King Kong movies later, with
That's
Jessica
still the original to
Lange, and
me. You can never really, technically, they can get better, but it's hard to beat the original still. And a lot of these classic films were made in black and white. That's another element. And you notice things too when you watch these old films, like um, back in the day, they would have the credits before the movie starts. Who was
uh-huh.
in the picture. And I also love the thing about King Kong. You got like one of the first times, like the Beauty and the Beast. Okay, King Kong is the beast, the ape, and he gets on the island and he meets this beautiful girl, Fay Ray, and he holds her up, and they have this unique bond. And that's kind of a basic story going throughout. But everybody else is scared of King Kong.
Oh yeah,
And,
yeah. So my second one is the
oh, okay.
original,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not the new one, but the original,
Yeah, yeah,
the
original.
original.
Yeah,
Uh, and I think the reason that the original is so like iconic, I
sure.
guess you would say, is because of all the people that were in it. Because when that miniseries, it's not really a movie, the
Yeah.
miniseries was made, it had all the big people in Hollywood in it. Everything from Jack Ritter
John Ritter.
or John Ritter to Tim, what's his name? Tim, the black guy, he's in it.
Okay.
Harry Dean Stanton's in it. It's got all these famous people in it. And Tim Curry, to be practical, because it's mostly practical back
Yeah.
then, is so much scarier than the new It. Because
Yeah.
the new it's more
Hollywood.
cartoony,
Yeah.
Hollywood. And, the original It, man, just, I think it stands up to
Sure.
be one of the greatest as far as one of Stephen King's adaptations.
Sure. And and talk about Stephen King for a minute. I mean, he's a lifelong horror writer, and so I love to see when a guy like that has success where they start making his books into movies, and the big screen because like anything you read, it's amazing. When you're reading a book, you have to use your imagination, but it's kind of neat to see a movie version of it because it comes to life. You get to really see what it looks like. And another honorable mention I got to have here is the Joker movie from a few years ago. And oddly enough, you may know that the second Joker movie comes out tomorrow, which is why I'm
Yeah.
bringing this up because, again, my original version of the Joker was going back to Cesar Romero's version on Adam West's Batman series from the 1960s, and he was kind of a fun-loving kind of, they call him the Clown Prince, a jokester. But like in this new one with that came out a couple of years ago with Joaquin Phoenix, he wins a Emmy. But I tell you, I went to the movie and it was a totally different. It's kind of based on that classic Joker, but yet much more psychotic. And I remember seeing the
Yeah.
last Joker movie. He's on the TV being interviewed, and he literally shoots the host that's interviewing him on live TV, and the blood splatters everywhere. I was not expecting that, and
Yeah.
it's much more of a blood and guts type of thing. It's a new type of Joker, but I love it for that very reason because it's so different from what I grew up on.
What is your number two?
Okay, now my number two is the original Frankenstein here. Again, as you can see, this is on. They got this on Blu-ray. I got a whole collection here, but I think again, you know, Frankenstein, I believe, was the second of the Universal horror movies that originally came out. First it was preceded by Dracula, and that came out. And by the time we get to the monsters, I mean, which is based on the original Frankenstein here, very different. Herman Munster kind of is a loving, a big adolescent, childlike, fun-loving creature, but it's based on Frankenstein. So that's a huge part of why I'm such a Musters fan because of original Frankenstein.
I used to live in Michigan, and I lived outside of Mackinac City, and the original guy that played Herman Monster had a house there because it
Okay,
was like one of the vacation places,
sure.
and he'd always come into the Dairy Queen with his grandkids where I worked at,
Uh-huh.
and I got to meet him once when he come in there. So
Oh, how
he
cool.
was a very nice guy. Um, you're gonna love my number one.
Okay.
It's a trifecta of metal movies, and it's Trick or Treat.
Oh, yes, yes. Huge Kiss fan myself, and who's not an Ozzy fan? And it's kind of funny because initially you think, okay, you're going to go see this movie, and either Gene Simmons or Ozzy's going to be the rocker guy. Not at all. The rocker guy was, of course, I believe his name was Mark Price. He played Skippy on Family Ties, and he
I don't
was
think he wasn't the bad guy. He was the guy in it. I don't think
okay.
he didn't play Sammy Carr. I don't think
Oh, okay, but he
he
was
was
in the
in it.
movie, so I forget.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I love the soundtrack. I mean, the soundtrack too was by Fastway. I mean, that the soundtrack itself was a
exactly.
huge success, but I love the fact that it had a heavy metal soundtrack, to go with it. But like even Gene Simmons and Ozzy's cameo part in them, I loved it. I mean, each had a little
Yeah,
part, but that's why people go and buy it because those two guys are in it. Gene Simmons, kind of cowboy looking, kind of Wolfman Jack type of DJ, and Ozzy, as a preacher. Um,
yeah,
and
yeah.
which is interesting because at that point, he was always being criticized by ministers and people with the church and stuff. And what I love about what Ozzy went on to become is, even all these years later, he's retired. He's suffering from Parkinson's disease, um, and yet he's once they had the Osbournes, TV show. All these
Hmm.
people that used to hate Ozzy Osbourne just loved him and his family now. Um, he became part pop culture, and so people just love Ozzy now.
Yeah. I do believe that's on Blu-ray now.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's on Blu-ray now.
And
I think somebody like
I always
Shout
see ads.
Factory or somebody did it.
Yeah, and I always see ads for it around this time, around Halloween time in October, and they always sometimes play late at night around the Halloween season.
So what's your number one?
My number one, going back to 1931, is the original Dracula. I mean, you just can't go wrong again with the original. I mean, there have been different versions of Dracula probably the most memorable one besides that to me would be, I can't remember what came out, what year it came out, or who starred in it, but I remember this movie called Love at First Bite or something. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I remember that.
yeah, and I see
Great
that as a little,
movie.
and then years later, of course, um, I'm a collector. I went and seen this. I got this. I put it on anytime I want. But again, what I love about the original Dracula, I mean, the vampire is, this kind of monster that never goes outside. He's totally like pale. He only wakes up at night, and you better watch out because if he sucks your blood, you're dead. And again, what I love about the film is he's the primary character in the movie, and so there's not very much dialogue, and the only time there is any dialogue, he's the one doing it. And again, for anybody that's into movie making, it's movie making when it was in its very early stages, which is, it's almost 100 years old now, Mike, this movie. And at this point,
Yeah.
it's still a classic.
Wasn't Jim Carrey in Love at First Bite? Wasn't that one of his
He,
first roles?
perhaps, I mean, I got to go back and look to be honest, but that movie, like, that's one I mentioned because it stands out. I always kind of, as a kid, remember seeing that and kind of just thinking okay, that was my modern day version of Dracula.
In no means does this take away from, Wes Craven
Sure,
or, Clive Barker or any of the other great directors that have made movies over the years.
sure,
You know, like a M. Night Shyamalan,
sure.
you know, there the thing about horror is there's so much of it and there's so much different styles. Like
Sure.
my style of horror was different than your style of horror
Sure.
tonight,
That's
you
why I,
know?
that's why I thought this would be fun to do. And and to be honest, Mike, we could even do a part two. But the reason I decided let's do a top five because I thought, okay, that'll give us 30 minutes, and that should cover it. But yeah, this was fun tonight, Mike. And so we'll be doing more of these episodes. I'm sure I'll have you come back. And so you want to tell us real quick where people can check out your show, Last Stone Mike show?
Yeah, it's Blast on Mike's Firerock TV show. And the first 12 episodes are on the Firerock YouTube channel. There's some really good stuff in there. Speaking of horror, there's a interview with Victor Miller, who created Friday the 13th, that
Okay.
I did during the pandemic. This next, for people that might not know this, but I guess it wouldn't anyway, but there will be some pretty big, heavy hitting interviews this time around. Um, Maybe one from a guy that has a movie coming out in a week and a half
Okay.
that
Okay.
is considered one of the biggest movies probably coming out this month.
I
I don't
can't
want to
wait to
go
see
into
that, Mike.
detail.
And tell us, will you be starting a new season of shows before the new year, or do you think once the new year hits?
Yes, November 1st.
Great, great. Yeah, that's right
And
around the corner, Mike.
it's going to be a totally different setup.
Okay.
There's going to be more things added to it, not just the interview. There's going to be like a couple little small segments added to it, movie reviews. My friend Fifi is going to be doing Tales from the Sunset Strip because he lives in
I
LA.
I love that. And by the way, I love Pipi Roo. He's been doing it for years, and I think that was one of the best episodes you've done, so far. He's quite a
Thanks.
character, and I'm glad he's still
We've been
around.
friends for a long time,
Yeah.
man. um,
Well,
but
yeah.
yeah, it's very rewarding. Just put it out there since it's coming up. And you talked about Firerock.
Yeah.
The new album by the Fast Mothers comes out on 11/8, which is November 8th on CD. Please go get it. The Atomic Kings comes out 11/8, and that's on vinyl. And we have three more artists that I signed coming out at the first of the year. And pretty excited about that. Been working really hard to get those things together. And most definitely, I want to thank Tom Collier because he invited me to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And as you know, we just met each other about a month ago
In,
for the first time.
in fact, Mike, if I could let people know, it hasn't been taped yet, but in November, I think the end of October, we're gonna get together for a special episode of This Is Metal. You, me, Tom, and our mutual friend Andy Howe, because the three of you guys finally met in person. we meet up to do the This Is Metal episode, we're going to talk all about that. So people tune in for that as well.
Yeah, we got some cool stories, and it was fun. You know, it was the first time I'd ever met him, and it was so worth the drive to come there.
He's I gotta
And
say, as far as Tom, he's even nicer in person.
oh yeah, it was surreal, man. It was really surreal sitting there on the backstage and on the couch with him, because it was like me and him were just like, oh, you're really here, and oh, you're really here, you know, because we
Yeah,
we we made Firerock music group what it is today, you know, me and him
yeah.
together, and it was just really
I
surreal,
mean,
man. It
I mean,
shows that.
I will say, Mike, I urge people to go on the Firerock YouTube channel. I can't believe the number of subscribers you guys have gotten in such a little bit of time. And final question for you, Mike.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've seen the video for Rhino's Aquarius, the Angels of Babylon video. What did you think of that when you saw that for the first time?
Well, I have to admit, I have not seen it.
Oh man, you got to go see it because it's
I have
amazing.
not seen it.
Yeah,
I've been so busy, wrapped up with, you know, my show that I'm doing,
sure,
and
sure.
then I've got other stuff I've got going on that I haven't told
Other bands
anybody,
you're
and then
signing? Yeah,
yeah, the
yeah,
other bands, and you know, uh, when we did Nick's album NZM,
yeah,
I was there for the whole thing. I was there from okaying the artwork to make sure the artwork got done to, I mean, everything, like the way the songs were going to flow. And I
yeah.
got three of them coming out here
And then
shortly, so I'm
and then
in the middle of doing that.
I mean, I'll give a huge shout out because I know our mutual friend Mark Lopes from
Oh
Metal
yeah,
Church in
Mark Lewis.
Rossabov. He's the one that designed Nick DiMarino's album cover.
Yeah, you all also, Nick just went on tour of this day. Uh, the first show with Ingve was last night, and they're on a 2.5 month tour. So make sure you go out and catch Nick on tour with Ingve, because
Okay,
they're
Mike.
coming
Well,
everywhere.
we're gonna say goodbye, Mike. Thanks for coming on. I always love talking to you. I promise we'll do it again. Okay.
Sounds great, man.
Hey, bye bye.